Hello, Pod. I'm Chris Hewitt, and welcome to a very special edition of the Empire Podcast. Now, the most recent issue of Empire is one of the best that I've ever been associated with, and I'm zeroing in on my 20th anniversary at the mag, so believe me, that is quite a statement. It is a celebration of those incredible moments you can only get when watching a movie in a cinema with an audience of like-minded souls. And this podcast is a companion piece to that. And for it, I'm joined by two men who you might know. One is our very own unpaid intern and the driving force behind that feature. He is the director of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, The World's End, Baby Driver, and the upcoming double whammy of Last Night in Soho and the Sparks Brothers. It's Mr. Edgar Wright. How are you, sir?
Hello. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. And then shooting across down through Southern Europe, he is a man who has directed a number of motion pictures of interest over the years. You might even have seen a few. Let me list them. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, Volumes 1 and 2, if you're so inclined, Death Proof, Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, The Hateful Eight, and of course, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Ladies and gents, Quentin Tarantino is on the Empire Podcast.
Good to be here. Good morning.
When was the last time you guys actually caught up in the same room together? Because obviously we're pandemicing and we're separated by some distance.
It was in London,
I'm not
right?
sure if I don't remember when the last time we were in the exact same room together, but Edgar is one of the 5 people that I have kept in touch with since I've been in Israel.
I know where we were last time. Is that we did a Q&A in London for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with me, you, David Heyman, and Robert Richardson, and then we went out to dinner afterwards with Alfonso Cuarón as well, and had.
Oh, that was the day. I guess that was the last time we were together. Yeah,
that's the last time we were in the same room. When we closed down that restaurant, I think we were chatting until like 4 a.m. or something like that.
You've been keeping in touch during this pandemic.
Yeah, we've he'll talk about it later. We have our own little movie club going, our own little book club going on actually.
And one of the things I started with was like Martin Scorsese had sort of put out this list. I think he'd given it to a fan, and the fan had put it onto the internet, and it had gone viral. Of like a fan had said to him a long time ago, Mr. Scorsese, what international films would you recommend? You know, I want to get into world cinema. And so Scorsese had done this kind of like sort of, I guess like a starter list. I mean, it's funny. As soon as you put that list on the internet, people say, where's so-and-so? Where's so-and-so? It's like he literally, it was like the first 40 movies off the top of his head. So I'd seen that list and it was kind of interesting. But then I thought in the lockdown thinking, you know, I've only seen 20 of that list. So I worked my way through the rest of the list. And I watched like, you know, and also this is a great way when you're in lockdown, watching a lot of world cinema is a great way to travel the world. So I watched I watched like The American Friend, Before the Revolution, Big Deal on Madonna Street, Death by Hanging, Dr. Mabuse the Gambler, The Enigma of Caspar Hauser, High and Low, Il Sorpasso, Kings of the Road, La Terra Trema, Marriage of Maria Braun, The Merchant of Four Seasons, Napoleon, Abel Gantz's Napoleon, all 5 hours of it. Rocco and His Brothers, Sancho the Bailiff, heartbreaking. Oh my God. Ugetsu and Umberto D, also heartbreaking. Anyway, I was so sort of moved by this. And I don't really know Martin Scorsese that well. I've met him twice and he's always been very nice to me, but I've only met him in passing. My neighbor in LA, Alfonso Gomez Rajon, is good friends with him. And I said, hey, could I get me his assistant's address? I want to write him a letter. So I wrote Martin Scorsese a letter to basically say thank you, because also I'd say this as well as the films, pretty easily you can find, if there's one of those movies, Martin Scorsese has probably written an essay on it, or sometimes on YouTube, there's like him talking about Death by Hanging or Before the Revolution. So without something like the BFI South Bank, I could sort of recreate it at home by watching the movie and then seeing what Martin Scorsese had to say about it. So I felt in this weird way, like unbeknownst to him, Martin Scorsese was like my film professor. And I was watching this I was getting through this module of international cinema. So then I wrote to him and I said, I sent this really nice letter and said, it was really genuinely like, I was like just in this lockdown, so sort of moved to be able to watch all of these films and sort of travel the world and like just saying like thank you. And I sort of said, I wish you could like, and it's similar to, I feel the same way about Quentin. I almost wish you could talk about every movie. That would be a better thing to have on Netflix, is instead of like skipping ahead to fucking Bridgerton at the end, is like to skip over to like Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino or Joe Dante and see what they have to say about it. Anyway, so I wrote this letter, and then literally as a PS at the end, I wrote, because I was kind of curious, and I think Martin Scorsese writes and talks about British film better than most British filmmakers and critics. And sometimes you need somebody like Scorsese or yourself, Quentin, to tell their own country is what's great, because, you know, usually, this is like with best of lists, eventually the same lists start doing the rounds and they sort of become aggregate lists. So if there's like in Time Out or something, the 100 greatest British films, it's usually the usual suspects and stuff. It's usually the kind of like the same films kind of keep cropping up. And not that they're bad films, but it's like the same movies. It's like you can't do the list without mentioning like Lawrence of Arabia or like Don't Look Now. Great movies. But like, so I was just curious. And I literally said at the end of the email to Scorsese, I said, by the way, I've always been curious, what are some of your favorite British films when you were growing up? I know, and I sort of like took these out of the equation. I said, you've spoken a lot about Powell and Pressburger and Hitchcock and David Lean. What are some other ones? So then I sent this email, and then it was basically like a voicemail where Martin Scorsese rattled off his list. I mean, I'll go through it and then we'll talk about some of them. So this is what, and so I have to say, because people are so annoying on the internet, they're saying, what about, like, you sound like fucking Fox News, but it's like, he's very clear. Martin Scorsese assumes that I know the famous Hammer ones, and he assumes that I know the Ealing comedies. And I've already said, don't worry about Powell and Pressburger and Hitchcock, so they're off the table. And he does say, like, so this is Martin Scorsese. He said, this is a pretty, now if you're at home and you're a film geek, you might want to have a pen and paper ready. This is a pretty much an incomplete list, I would think. Obviously, there are major Ealing Studio films like Kind Hearts and Coronets, which are prominent. But there have been some others over the years that have really stayed with me. I'll run through a few titles with you. Let's see. If you haven't seen Station 6 Sahara by Seth Holt, you should. It's a very special film for me. There's Edmund Greville's Brief Ecstasy. There are other Ealing films like The Halfway House and Went the Day Well. Another Seth Holt film, Seth Holt did Station 6 Sahara. Nowhere to Go is an interesting noir. Obviously, The Nanny, yet another Seth Holt film, is a favorite. Madonna of the Seven Moons and The Man in Grey are favorites. Some Terence Fisher films like So Long at the Fair, and early Hammer films he made like A Stolen Face and Four-Sided Triangle, which I saw many times as a kid. David Lean's The Sound Barrier is a favorite. Also, This Happy Breed. The composition in widescreen and black and white photography and sound editing and performances in Guns at Patazi by John Guillermin is very interesting. Green for Danger with Alistair Sim, which Quentin showed me on 35mm once. A disturbing movie, The Mindbenders. Another early Terence Fisher movie, To the Public Danger, which is only about an hour long, but is fascinating on YouTube. The Ealing Studio film, It Always Rains on Sunday, is a favorite. It reminds me of The Long Good Friday, which I'm sure you're aware of. He's correct. Alexander McKendrick's A High Wind in Jamaica is interesting. Thorold Dickinson's The Queen of Spades is definitely a favorite. More Ealing Studio films, Hue and Cry, Robert Hamer's Pink String and Sealing Wax is another favorite. The Blue Lamp, The Good Die Young, which I think is Terence Young. Mandy by Alexander McKendrick. The crazed vampire film called Vampires, you may know of it, directed by Jose Larraz in 1974. Uncle Silas from 1947. I'm sure you're aware of The Legend of Hell House. I am. I ripped it off in Don't. Another semi-favorite is Burn, Witch, Burn. The British title is Night of the Eagle. Then there's also The Flesh of the Fiends in 1959 and a bunch of Hammer films like The Snorkel, 1957, and Scream of Fear, 1960. The British title is Taste of Fear. Then there's These Are the Damned, 1961, English title of The Damned. I'm sure you're aware of Plague of the Zombies. John Gilling, he's correct. Also, I'm sure you're aware of the Quatermass films, the one in 1954, and my favorite, Quatermass in the Pit, 1967. Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, 1971. The Devil Rides Out, 1967. The Asphyx, ASPHYX. I'm sure that the asterisk, which is great. There's so much more of these, really, and this may at least give you a start if you haven't seen some of these. And then he goes, oh, by the way, 2 silent films by Anthony Asquith, which I think are remarkable: Underground and Shooting Stars, a truly remarkable use of editing. Other films by Basil Dearden, like Sapphire, which I've seen again recently and I still think is very strong. The short BBC film Whistle and I'll Come to You by Jonathan Miller. The Ealing film Dead of Night. This is a real random one. I was captivated by the TV semi-doc series on the Enfield Haunting, which is from maybe only 10 years ago. Also, The Lonely Passion of Judith Hearn, The Pumpkin Eater, not to mention The Innocents. All 3 of those are by Jack Clayton. Of course, there's The Seventh Veil and Yield to the Night. And he says, anyway, I hope you're doing well with your work and can't wait to see the new one.
You don't give Jaley Thompson a shout out. You've named all these other directors and you say Yield to the Night, you don't say Jaley Thompson.
Wait, who did I not give a shout out to?
Jaley Thompson.
Oh, yeah, Yield to the Night, Jaley Thompson. No, he didn't. I say he didn't mention that, but Jaley Thompson, yes. Okay. Yield to the Night, Diana Dawes' best performance. I
agree.
A good double bill is Yield to the Night and Dance with a Stranger, which is essentially 2 versions of the same story. So I got this email. It was amazing. I wrote it down. I'd say maybe about less than half of them I'd seen. Now, in January, there's only 5 left that I bought all of them I could on Blu-ray. The ones I couldn't find, Scorsese actually burnt me DVDRs for them. But I have 5 left to go. But then I shared the email. I sort of said, hey, I got to send you this email I got with Martin Scorsese. And by the way, I told Martin that I sort of said, I sent him a message the other day. I said, I'm 5 away from finishing the list, and Quentin Tarantino is hot on my trail. I basically shared that. And this started what I guess we can only describe as, we call it the British Book Club, but it's essentially the British Film Club, where we have been watching these films, and then this, and Quentin can talk about this, has led down a whole other rabbit hole of just British films in general. So I just want to, just publicly, not that he's going to listen to this, but thank you, Martin Scorsese, for the most amazing email, and also a bunch of movies that not many people talk about anymore.
Yeah, right on to that. Edgar shared me the list. I wrote it down. I started going down some of the lists, and that led me down a rabbit hole, since I'm competitive to find my own ones. Then Edgar gave me his list of ones that I haven't seen that I should see. I have a little list of ones that from before, of British films that I'm a fan of. But I'm also excited by the ones that I also just kind of discovered on my own from going down this Martin Scorsese, Edgar Wright wormhole.
Uh-huh.
And it's of the Scorsese list of the ones that I had seen before, I have a 35 millimeter print of High Wind in Jamaica. So I have that. I love the scene when the monkey dies. That's amazing. Not only have I seen Green for Danger, I like Green for Danger so much that I read the book that Green for Danger is based on, and I've read 3 other Inspector Corporal novels, mysteries, because I really love that character. I wish there was 4 other Inspector Corporal movies with Alistair Sims playing him. And actually, one of the things I really like about Green for Danger is my favorite British actress of that period is the actress Sally Gray. I'm a big, big Sally Gray fan. So that's actually how I even got to Green for Danger, because I saw Sally Gray in a couple of other movies, and I wanted to see as much as I could see of her, and that led me to Green for Danger. I had also seen vampires. I'd also seen Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. Naturally, I've seen Dead of Night. I've seen The Innocents. I'm not as much of a fan of The Innocents as everybody else is.
Oh, I love that one.
And I love Yield to the Night by J. Lee Thompson. I don't think there's a single I don't think there's a single kitchen sink drama that J. Lee Thompson did during that period that I'm not a fan of. I like them all. The ones that I went down the list that I got a chance to see is the first one on the list that I saw that I really, really liked was the Terence Fisher film, So Long at the Fair.
Yeah, and I watched that. I hadn't seen that either before.
And one of the things about that one that I thought was so cool is it's very similar to The Lady Vanishes. I'm not going to make a case that it's better than The Lady Vanishes, but I think I enjoyed it more because there was an interesting storytelling aspect. you really want to fucking know what's happening. You really want to know what happened. And it doesn't seem like it's going to be a pat answer. And it's not a pat answer. Far from it, frankly, by the way. But you really want to know what's going on. And as opposed to playing a Rosemary's Baby-like game, like, well, is this person crazy? Did this really? No. You know that they're lying to her.
So the premise of the movie is that Gene Simmons and David Tomlinson, her brother, have gone to Paris, and they spend the night in Paris. And then the next morning, the hotel that they're in, they wake up the next morning, and David Tomlinson is not only not there, but the room that he was in does not exist anymore. And we as an audience know that, like, she's not crazy. Like, she came there with her brother, and the hotel staff are telling her that, like, you checked in on your own, your brother wasn't here, the room doesn't exist. And so, you know, it's in that same genre as like Bunny Lake is missing, or, you know. But
when you absolutely positively know that the hotel people are lying.
Yeah.
But they're doing a really convincing job of making her think she's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really, but one of the things that really kind of blew me away is, naturally, I'm a big Terrence Fisher fan, but frankly, I'd only seen his Hammer movies. To see him work with a big star like Gene Simmons, and to see what looks like a really rather big budget movie in the 40s in Britain, it was like, holy shit, I've never seen him work on that kind of canvas before. That was really surprising. I saw Sapphire, which also is a huge Edgar recommendation, and I loved it. I adored it. I mentioned it already. I think it's the movie that everyone says Peeping Tom is. But not only that, there is just this, and there's another film that that's on the BFI channel, but I don't want to subscribe to it, but I want to see, is that with the Pools of London.
I'm sure that the BFI would give you a free subscription.
Well, I'm sitting here in Tel Aviv. If they want to give me a free subscription, find me through Empire, all right? Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of the ones I want to see, I want to see The Blue Light. I can't see it because it's only on BFI. A lot of them, they're only on BFI.
You might get something through the post soon, Quentin, that you'll enjoy.
Okay. You threatened that. I'm looking forward to it. But one of the things about it is, one of the discoveries I made that I absolutely positively loved was Basil Dearden's jazz reworking of Othello, All Night Long.
There's a Criterion box set called The London Underground that has Victim, Sapphire, The League of Gentlemen, and All Night Long on it. Yeah, which is rare.
And I mean, this might sound patronizing, and I don't mean it to be. I could not believe I was watching a British movie from that era be so fucking hip. It's really hip. But the thing is, though, combine that sight unseen, not having seen Pools of London, that's about a black merchant sailor, and combine that, also done by Basil Dearden, and combine that with All Night Long, and combine that with Sapphire. That makes Basil Dearden one of the most race-conscious directors, right up there with Sam Fuller, that existed in that era. It's like there's Joseph L. Lewis, there's Sam Fuller, there's Basil Dearden, and then there's everybody else.
Well, the interesting thing about this list for me as well is, like, I mean, in a similar way to talk, is that it is that great thing, and this is why you asked Martin Scorsese for the list, is that some of these directors are sort of like not necessarily as appreciated now. And like, weirdly, something like Basil Dearden, I would say, even growing up, had sort of maybe like a stuffy reputation. And then actually watching the movies, especially for their time, they're like really kind of like strong. Sapphire, Victim, like All Night Long. Pool of London I have seen, and it's really good. It's like a great post-war noir, like, you know, it's another film on this list, like Hue and Cry. Both Hue and Cry and Pool of London just have extraordinary, like, post-war London footage. Just like, even in the 50s, obviously, London was still ravaged by the Blitz, and just the location work is extraordinary. And so it's that was the amazing thing for me. And I had the same feeling about Terrence Fisher as Quentin. Is obviously I'd seen tons of the Terrence Fisher films. In fact, I remember that we watched at the New Beverly a double bill of Curse of Frankenstein and The Horror of Dracula back to back, which was like one of the best double bills of all time.
Yeah.
But I hadn't seen the early Terence Fisher films, and the ones from the list that I was like really struck by, aside from So Long at the Fair, is To the Public Danger, which is like an hour long. You can find it on YouTube, actually, because I'm not sure there's even a DVD or a Blu-ray of it. But it's an adaptation of a Patrick Hamilton radio play. And Patrick Hamilton is the writer of Gaslight, Hangover Square, an amazing book called 20,000 Streets Under the Sky. Like, and a very dark writer, like sort of writing about mostly about London. And To the Public Danger is a really like cruel little, I mean, it's like an hour long. It's on YouTube. It's really easy to find, and it's like really strong. And then also the other Terence Fisher ones that like Four-Sided Triangle is a very odd movie because it's almost like watching The Fly if it was only interested in the romantic, melodramatic part of it and not the sci-fi part. It's kind of a strange movie. The other one that I really enjoyed, though, was a film called A Stolen Face by Terence Fisher, which I suddenly, you know, sometimes when you kind of like you're a gap in your movie, or there's an extra dot to connect. I've always loved Eyes Without a Face, and I loved Pedro Almodovar's The Skin I Live In. And then when I was watching Stolen Face, I was like, wow, I bet like Pedro Almodovar must love this movie as well. Because A Stolen Face is about a plastic surgeon who is in love with this woman who doesn't love him back. And then he does kind of pro bono work at like a prison to rehabilitate people who have disfigurements. So he like is working with this woman who's just got out of prison, who's got a disfigurement, and he's restoring her face. But he restores her face to look like the woman who won't marry him. And the same actress is playing both parts. But in the later point, the actress who you've seen, I have to look up the name of the actress, but she's dubbed, I think it's Lisbeth Scott. Does that sound right? Could you look at
Lisbeth Scott? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is her.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense. She did a series of British films.
So in the latter half of the movie, when she's playing like the sort of Cockney woman who's got out of prison, who's now had her face restored to look like Lisbeth Scott seemingly is then post-dubbed by an English Cockney actress. So it's a wild movie. It's a really great little B movie. So I guess the thing going through this list is that I was like floored by, I mean, there's obviously ones that like sort of just kind of ones that either like directors who, you know, as they maybe got older, had got like a stuffier reputation or like a, you know, like, we'll talk about Guns at Batazi because like a lot of later John Guillermin films, you know, maybe like Towering Inferno, or he did King Kong as well. Mm-hmm. And Guns at Batazi is like a different proposition. And to see these sort of directors in their early work, you know, obviously a lot of J. Lee Thompson's earlier films are a lot different from 10 to Midnight, you know, like things like Tiger Bay.
I can defend both eras, all right? But
no, totally.
They're very different.
Yeah.
I can defend both eras. I can defend the Cannon era just as much as I can defend Yellow Balloon.
There's another great one that like isn't on Martin's list by J. Lee Thompson, which I watched actually when I was writing Last Night in Soho, called No Trees in the Street.
Oh, yeah.
That's amazing with Herbert Lom. It's really strong. And like he was, you know, like, I mean, I know you're a big Quentin, you schooled me on J. Lee Thompson, and I felt particularly shamed by that because J. Lee Thompson is from Bristol. Like he grew up like 30 miles away from where I did. And I must admit, I feel ashamed to say this. I know this now, but there was a point where I thought that maybe I didn't really realize that J. Lee Thompson was even a British director, because J. Lee Thompson had kind of become synonymous with Charles Bronson when I was growing up. But
did a lot of Clint Eastwood movies as well.
Yeah.
No, he didn't do Clint Eastwood movies.
He did Pink Cadillac.
No, Clint Eastwood directed Pink Cadillac.
Oh, okay. All right. My mistake.
You might want to edit that bit out.
Is this what? Yeah, I'm embarrassed now.
Listen, leave it in. Even you can be fallible, Chris Hewitt.
It has been known from time to time.
How do you pronounce it?
Batazi, maybe?
Batazi. That's my favorite of the ones on the Scorsese list. Guns of Batazi. And you could knock me over with a feather when I ended up loving that movie as much as I did. Because, you know, I think of John Gillerman as the movies he did from the late 60s through the 70s. And almost like exactly what like Edgar's saying about the way a lot of these directors in their older years are defined by, Basil, if you asked me 9 months ago, Basil Dearden, the first thing I would say would be cartoon. Mm-hmm. A lot of these British actors, at least as far as I'm concerned, I remember their international American movies that they did in the late 50s or 60s. So to me, Jack Hawkins is the really boring lead of Land of the Pharaohs. Jack Hawkins is in boring international movies. I really like Richard Attenborough in the Great Escape, but I'm not a big Richard Attenborough fan as an actor. I'm not a really big fan of Dirk Bogart's international movies. Then to see these guys in one movie after another in England when they were a little younger at their prime, in playing all these different types of roles and all these different types of characters, it's a revelation. I realized I didn't know who the fuck these guys were. It's like judging Hiroshima Fumi from his American movies, to some degree. But Guns of Batazi is so fucking great. It was such a magnificent film. Again, deals with a very interesting racial aspect and deals with it very forthrightly. And for a movie that kind of remind me a little bit of Hateful Eight, for a movie that could almost be a play, not quite, but almost be a play. 75% of it could be a play. And by the way, it would be a fantastic play. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine all the situations that happen, just people on stage just coming in and out of that door? I mean, it would be amazing. It would be such an exciting night of theater. But then the widescreen framing of it, the use of the widescreen format is just remarkable. But then at the center of it is Richard Attenborough's tour de force performance. And I'm not a fan of his as an actor. I am now. After that and All Night Long and League of Gentlemen, I am now. But I mean, it's tour de force. And it's one of those kind of characters that just really grabs you, where he's a military, he's not even an officer, he's a sergeant major. And he runs the sergeant's club, not the officers' club, the sergeant's mess. He runs the sergeant's mess. And so the people who are really under him are the other sergeants. And he's a spit and polish guy, does all the rules the right way, goes by the rule book, like the army clown, literally the army clown, the one that they all make fun of because of his devotion to the hierarchy of the pomp and circumstance of the military. And he is a clown. He is a clown. That's how we think of him. But in this military, dramatic, 24-hour war situation, he's the one with the fortitude to do what nobody else can do. And it's all the things that make him a joke in peacetime that actually don't even make him a hero, make him a genuine soldier. But then the other dual aspect is it's not even a war. It's a weird 24-hour situation that develops, that happens. You can't describe it anymore without ruining the movie. But it blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. And I've had that on video for 45 years, and I've never watched it.
You know what's interesting? It actually reminded me, and obviously it wasn't an influence because you hadn't seen it, but like the films I started to think of, it's almost like watching like a if Zulu were a play, like there's that aspect to it. But the two films it reminded me of is like, it reminded me of Reservoir Dogs, and it reminded me of Assault on Precinct 13. Like it never quite becomes an action film like Assault on Precinct 13.
But it threatens to. It's right on the lip of it. It's right there. You know?
And it's interesting that Scorsese mentions like the photography. I think the cinematographer is Douglas Slocum.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And who did The Servant, which looks amazing, and then later did he did Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Douglas Slocum.
Yeah. He did all three indies before Crystal Skull.
But I did see him. Like I remember when they had this British film thing at Windsor Castle, and Douglas Slocum was there, and it was like, oh my god! I mean, he must have been like 90 or something. When I say the Windsor Castle thing, the one thing I say about that is more exciting than meeting the Queen was when I went to this Windsor Castle thing, where the entire British film industry were there, and everybody had to wear badges. George Lucas was there as well, even though he's American. But the funniest thing is that even George Lucas has to wear a badge for the Queen. So the funniest thing to me was seeing George Lucas with a name tag saying like George Lucas. So it's like, well, I know who you are, but clearly the Queen does not.
I feel like George Lucas's 4A electronics badge.
The reason I bring up the Windsor Castle thing, you'll have this question. So you're going to Windsor Castle to meet the Queen. The whole of the British film industry is there. And when I was going there, there was a point where you were downstairs, you put your coats in, and then you go up to this function room. And just by some sort of kismet, like when I was walking up the steps, even though there are fucking hundreds of people there, like I just happened to walk up the steps on my own and nobody else was there. Everybody else was either inside or downstairs. And at the top of the stairs, when I'm walking up, a fucking castle, by the way, at the top of the stairs is Christopher Lee. And then I just stand completely still. And I just stop and I'm just looking at Christopher Lee, and Christopher Lee is looking back at me. He doesn't know who I am, but we're just looking at each other. And I'm just thinking, I'm just going to stand here. Because all I can think is like, fucking Count Dracula is at the top of the stairs. This is amazing. And to be honest, everything after that was a disappointment. To go back to Guns of Batazi, so Scorsese mentioned the cinematography, and there's a shot in that movie where I admit I rewound it because I was like, that's amazing. There's a bit in the movie where Richard Attenborough has corralled the troops to go and like get some ammo from like the sort of the ammunition store. And then there's this amazing, like, I think it's like a one-er. It's like a great dolly shot where it shows them all wordlessly coming in, feel like you're Rolling Thunder moment, wordlessly coming in and tooling up. Like, and Graham Stark from the Pink Panther films is one of the other guys. And Johnny Layden, the singer of Johnny Remember Me, who's also Great Escape. But there's this amazing like shot where just wordlessly they get to the ammunition store and then they just kind of like tool up, and it's all done in one dolly shot. And I had to rewind it. It was so cool.
No, I am so now into seeing other John Guillermin movies of that era. One of the ones that I really, really want to see, this is a movie I've always wanted to see anyway, is a movie he did starring Aldo Ray called The Day They Robbed the Bank of England.
Oh, I've heard of that. Never seen it.
Aldo Ray and is Peter O'Toole's first like lead role.
I haven't seen that one.
But the star is Aldo Ray. Well, no, but one of the things that's funny about it was not only watching all these movies, it somehow turned into a Nigel Patrick Film Festival.
Yes, he's amazing. Nigel Patrick, who's so great in Sapphire, he's also like great in The League of Gentlemen. Basil did. If you've never seen The League of Gentlemen, that is one of the great heist films, and like everybody in it is great. Attenborough, Jack Hawkins, Nigel Patrick is so good in The League of Gentlemen. It's such a great.
I'm having a big problem with a lot of these British crime films, though. I'm having a big problem. I do not like the last 20 minutes of most of them.
Right.
Because it is how the crimes and how the crooks get brought down is so contrived.
Right.
If they're 90 minutes long, I'm loving the first hour. And I'm finding the more than most American movies at that time, and I have a problem with that in American movies too, but it's like it's extra contrived in these British crime movies. They should have gotten away with it in The League of Gentlemen. at least got out of the country that night. I didn't buy all those cops outside.
What happens? Did the kid memorize
you know that's it. You know that's fucking it. And no, I don't believe that the cop came by and remembered the license plate number from the car, and that's going to bring the entire aspect down. I mean, like, what's the point of writing such a good crime if you're going to have it foiled so redundantly? The minute you see that shot of that little kid making a note of the license plate number, you might as well stop watching the movie because you know what's going to happen.
I do though, to be fair to it, the thing that I do like about the end of that movie, that I think is, and I haven't seen it for a couple of years, so I might be misremembering, but as far as I recall, the end of the movie is that even though they've been caught, they're sort of happy to be in custody with each other because they're back as a gang again.
It's a little less than they're happy to be a gang. It's more like they've actually become a military unit. So it's almost like they're going to a POW camp or something, and their officer has been reunited with them. But I don't like it when the crooks are brought down for contrived reasons. They could get away. I think it's a convention that they get caught anyway because they have to get caught. But when it's in such a contrived way.
Yeah, because of a moral imperative.
Yeah, it's a moral imperative. And then and I mean, really, his crime is so good. How can you not put at least as a quarter of the thought that you put into devising the crime into what foils it?
There's a couple of ones on this list actually that I will say that I think are like that are pretty hard edge, that are like that are nice. You know, I don't know if you saw yet, Quentin, The Good Die Young with like Laura.
I didn't like it.
You didn't like it? Oh,
no, I thought that was contrived too. I kind of saw where everyone's little character was. I didn't quite buy everyone's little story in it. I didn't finish watching it. I got sick of it.
I liked Lawrence Harvey as a nasty piece of work. I thought I
liked him. Oddly enough, I liked Joan Collins for her first scene in it. I thought that was kind of cool. But I thought that was contrived.
Did you see Nowhere to Go? You haven't seen yet, have you?
No, I haven't seen that.
That's an interesting movie, and that's kind of one because it's Seth Holt. It's one of the last. I think it's the.
No,
last,
I want to see that. That looks like it's going to be one I'm going to like.
It's the last Ealing movie, and it's also a very. I mean, what's interesting as well. It's interesting that Scorsese mentions it. The other thing I think gets lost in the history of British film a little bit because people, you know, like as things go on, people focus on certain things, and so Ealing means a certain thing. Ealing means like the Lavender Hill Mob and the Titfield Thunderbolt and Kind Hearts and Coronets. But there's all these Ealing noir films, which are sort of like are pretty fucking great. The ones that I was really taken, there was a couple that I'd seen before I got the Scorsese one. So one of the ones I'd seen already was Went the Day Well, which is like knockout. And I sort of watched Went the Day Well. I was like, how is it possible that I didn't see this movie before I made Hot Fuzz? Because I don't know if you've seen that one, Quentin.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
But the premise of that movie is it's a fictitious World War II tale. It's like as if Nazis had invaded the UK and they have basically taken over this village pretending to be English soldiers. And then basically the people of the village, who are mostly like old ladies, figure out that these soldiers are not British, they are actually the Nazis, and then the villagers like sort of fight back, and it's fucking awesome.
That sounds fantastic.
It's great, and it's directed by Cavalcanti, who also did parts of Dead of Night, and an amazing film called They Made Me a Fugitive with Trevor Howard, which is really good photography, and that's great. But there's these other Ealing ones that are like really hard edged. There's also, this is what's great about this is like, for me, it's a similar thing to like finding out that like Dirk Bogarde and Richard Attenborough are not the kind of the lovies that they became. I mean, Dirk Bogarde, I think all is always like sort of kind of subverting his persona a little bit. But then, like you said, if you only know Dirk Bogarde from Doctor in the House, it's not the same as the Dirk Bogarde from The Blue Lamp or Victim or the Mindbenders on here, the Basil Dearden film, which is really disturbing. But the other thing I was going to say is one of the great things about this list is I went through and you suddenly know who actors are that are kind of like not in the zeitgeist when I was growing up, but the kind of people that my mother or my grandmother would talk about. So my grandmother would give me a second, because what's his? Fuck! I've just blanked on his name. Stuart.
River Long?
No. Like
Stuart Granger?
Stuart Granger. There you go. Okay, so Stuart Granger is a name that I only knew because my grandmother had a crush on him. And then I see some Stuart Granger films. I was like, now I get it. Stuart Granger is like the 40s fucking matinee idol. And like the two that are on the Scorsese list, like Madonna of the Seven Moons and The Man in Grey, which also like Margaret Lockwood in The Man in Grey. Holy hell, what a performance. So there's people like that. And also the other person that like, I'd only heard the name. It's like a name that you hear and like in Zeitgeist, or maybe you hear it mentioned in like a Monty Python sketch or something, is Googie Withers. And Googie Withers in two like Ealing movies, It Always Rains on Sunday, which is fucking great, like a little Ealing post-war noir, and also this movie Pink, String and Sealing Wax. Googie Withers is fantastic. And she's like this kind of like British femme fatale. I mean, she was also like a sort of big, I think like a forces sweetheart and like one of those people who would go on like army tours and stuff. I hope I'm right in saying that. But then you see her in these noir films where she's sort of like the funny femme fatale. And it's like, man, Googie Withers is so great. Like, so that was the real, and the other thing for me as real revelations is sometimes when you see a film by a director that you don't know them at all. And it's like, well, actually, there's one film I'd seen, one of the films that I saw on the Scorsese list that like the direction of it just really knocked me out was The Queen of Spades by...
No, that's the one of the ones I want to see because you were talking about that.
Oh my God. I mean, I'd seen one of his, it's directed by Thorold Dickinson, and I'd seen his version of Gaslight because there's the Gaslight, the one with Ingrid Bergman, the Hollywood version. But prior to that, there's a British version by Thorold Dickinson, and it's also really strong. But then Queen of Spades, I watched it, and it's like you know, like somebody that thinking, well, this guy is like sort of Orson Welles in Citizen Kane mode, or like Hitchcock, like just before going to Hollywood. And in fact, Queen of Spades is so strong, the direction and the look of it. It just is such a, I want to say it's a Gainsborough film. Maybe it's not actually. No, it's not Gainsborough. It was shot in Welwyn Garden City when they used to have studios there. Watch Queen of Spades, and I was just like, holy hell, this is so well directed. It looks so beautiful. It's also so kind of like, like a black comedy, or it's got like a really it's not really a black comedy, but it's got that kind of like nasty sort of like streak to it. I was really knocked out by it. And then I started reading up about Thorold Dickinson, and lo and behold, David O. Selznick was trying to lure Thorold Dickinson to Hollywood like he did with Hitchcock, with Rebecca. But Thorold Dickinson did not go. So then you start to get into this thing of like, wow, I wonder, like, is there like, he did some great movies and I want to watch some of his other ones, just thinking, could he have been even bigger? But that movie, Queen of Spades, like knocked me out. I couldn't quite believe I had never seen it before. I was thinking like, wow, this is an amazing.
Did you have a DVD of it, or did you see it on YouTube? I
saw a Blu-ray of it. When I got this list, all of the ones that were on Blu-ray, I just got them. I just bought them blind buy. And then
I want to see Queen. That might be one of the ones I want to see next.
It's amazing. That's an amazing film. I mean, the other thing as well, let's talk about what Quentin, like we were saying about separate rabbit holes. We also started watching like lots of other movies, and like the Terence Fisher thing, and also watching, weirdly enough, I've seen a lot of Hammer horrors, but I had never seen the Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. And what's funny is I'd never seen that one. And like, there's one.
I saw that on the CBS Friday night movie. It was fucking on in the 70s when I was a kid. When I met Martina Buswick, I knew who she was.
Well, later in the UK, Ralph Bates became a sitcom star in the 80s. Yep. He was in a sitcom called Dear John. So what's kind of wild to me watching Ralph Bates in like, I went down to the Ralph Bates rabbit hole. I watched Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, which led to me another DVD I'd had sitting on my shelf for like 10 years. And like, considering how much nudity it had in it, it was a wonder I hadn't watched it before. But I watched The Vampire Lovers and Lust for a Vampire. And I think The Vampire Lovers might be the Hammer horror nudity film.
Well, actually, it was funny because when I was first invited with Reservoir Dogs in '92 to the Sitges Horror Film Festival in Spain. So me and Tim Roth go to Sitges, and I think she was a judge or something who was there, was Jonathan Demme's ex-wife, Evelyn Purcell. who did that movie Nobody's Fool with Rosanna Arquette. And her best friend was Martina Breswick, who was there at the festival.
Sister Hyde
so I
herself.
hung out with her for like a whole week at the festival. Like, oh, it's Mrs. Hyde. And she's also the Happy Hooker from The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington. No, not the Happy Hooker Goes to Hollywood.
What's funny is I was watching Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. I don't want to give too much away about Last Night in Soho, but there's a couple of like cool mirror shots in it. And I've been watching a lot of like great mirror shots in film. In fact, Chris, me and you were talking, I was talking to James Cameron about a particular shot in the Terminator 2 deleted scenes that I was really taken with. So we as a production have been watching all of these in-camera great mirror shots. And then lo and behold, in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, there is a killer transformation shot, which is so lo-fi that even though we'd finished making Last Night in Soho, I found the clip on YouTube. I said, guys, I can't believe we missed this one from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. As when Ralph Bates first transformed into Martin Beswick, there is a one-er where Ralph Bates comes out of the laboratory and goes into his kind of like study, and it's in a handheld shot, and Ralph Bates is kind of like crouched up in pain because he's about to transform. And then the camera just over Ralph Bates' shoulder moves up to a full-length mirror, which you've already seen. But now, whilst the camera was kind of focused on Ralph Bates crouching, the production team have just tweaked the angle of the mirror ever so slightly. The Martin Beswick is now just sitting behind Ralph Bates, and it's an in-camera one-er. And it's amazing. And it's like so lo-fi. And that's the thing about those later Hammer films, which I'm sure is why Scorsese loves them, is that you had really great directors in the later stages of their career, like Terence Fisher and Roy Ward Baker, who had done, like So Long at the Fair is a much bigger movie than most of his Hammer movies, but he has the fucking chops, and Roy Ward Baker has the chops, you know, and like, so that's the thing is you watch Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, and it's funny. I post on Instagram like the spines of the things I've been watching, and I posted a lot of things, and it had a lot of Hammer films. And one commenter said, Quentin, this will drive you insane. And this commenter said, he goes, do you watch any good movies by like Kubrick or David Lynch? He goes like, these are fun, but they're pure pulp. And I just responded, I went, fuck you. I said, with the utmost respect, go fuck yourself. But the thing is like, this is the reason that why we love these movies and why Scorsese loves them. It's about it. Ultimately, these things are about craft. It's like you'd have to be fucking dumb at this point to sneer at Hammer horror movies. But even if they're kind of like pulpy and stuff, it's like it's just the craft of them. That's why people love Mario Bava films. It's not just because they're horror films. It's because he's one of the best directors in the world, and he's doing stuff like that people like maybe take on, you know, whether David Lynch or like Martin Scorsese, like, or take on things from that, or even Fellini, like Fellini kind of like, you know, takes off Barbara in Spirits of the Dead. And I think that's one of the things in this day and age is that like, we're of the generation, all of us, where we grew up like watching, like, aside from going to the movies to watch something, if you watch a movie, you watch it all the way through. If you are watching something on TV when you're a kid, before streaming, you would watch a film because it was on TV and you would watch it all the way through. And if you even got a VHS out from the store, you would watch it all the way through. You wouldn't like get a VHS out and like stop after 15 minutes. Like you would watch the whole thing. And that is how what I sort of like the thing where I guess we become connoisseurs of like the great bits in what films that if they were on Netflix, other people might have switched off by this point saying, oh, what else is on? Streaming has created like such kind of attention deficit disorder. And it's that thing where sort of like, so Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde is a great movie anyway, but then there's these little bits where like there's a shot where I literally had to, like as soon as it finished, find that clip, show it to the production team and saying, look at this fucking shot. And it was like, literally, what's funny is that like Chung Hoon, who shot Last Night in Soho, had done one shot on the day where something that I thought was going to be an effect shot, and Chung said, oh, like this. And he like did the in-camera trick. I was like, man, like, wow. Who is it directed by?
Vernon Swell, the Vampire Beast Crazed Blood guy. Again, on YouTube, easy to find.
So are you guys methodical about your rabbit holes? How do you do it? Do you just go where the wind takes you, or do you make lists of actors and directors to pursue? How does it work for you?
I sort of started kind of like I was saying, I started kind of just, I had so much fun watching some of that. I watched like Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde. I watched The Devil Rides Out for the first time since I was like 15. Like I'd seen that movie before, but I had bought the Blu-ray of it, and I was going to watch The Devil Rides Out again. And I was like, that movie is fucking great. Or my only criticism of The Devil Rides Out, which you could say for a lot of some of the films that period, is it's too well lit for a horror film. However, it's still so fucking fun. And it was that thing where you watch something again, and all of the images that you remember when you're 15 are like, yes, I remember this scene with this massive spider. It's fucking terrifying. But then I went down a whole rabbit hole of just watching like Hammer ones again, watching some of the Frankensteins again, and watching like some of the other Draculas that I hadn't seen. And like I said, watching Lust for a Vampire and The Vampire Lovers. I mean, there's some other ones on this list as well that like I'd never seen vampires before either. And I realized that I like had, I had the Arrow Blu-ray of it, and I was like, I gotta watch this. But there was a couple of other ones on. There's that Joseph Losey film, These Are the Damned. I don't know if you've ever seen that one, Quentin.
Yeah, I've had that forever, and it's one of those ones I've never got around to watching. But I'm not a big Joseph Losey fan, frankly.
Well, I'll say this about that one: that These Are the Damned is like a weird mix of like Marlon Brando's, The Wild One. Yeah. And Village of the Damned. It is a real like collision of two different genres, like the biker movie and like a John Wyndham sci-fi movie. And it's really strange and really like unusual. And
the biker imagery has always attracted me in it. The biker imagery of it has always attracted me.
And that movie like with Oliver Reed crashes into a John Wyndham sci-fi movie. It's really the other one. One of the ones I was so happy to see on the list. And I said this, when I replied to Scorsese, I said, this is one of those movies that I thought only me and my brother had seen. And I'd never like met anybody in my lifetime who'd ever seen it or mentioned it, is The Asphyx, like the 1972 like horror film with Robert Powell, which is such a great premise. The premise of that movie, Chris, if you haven't seen it, is that
I haven't actually.
These scientists, I think it's like turn of the century, or it's in Victorian times. Yeah. They figure out that you can capture the soul leaving the body. So they create this contraption to capture the souls leaving the body, and they capture the souls of people who have been hanged for murder. And so they essentially, in this movie, have captured the soul of like dead murderers. So it's like a Victorian like sci-fi movie. And it's one of those films I like watched it late night on ITV. And then when you start like before, in the pre-internet age where you maybe have to rely on it being in a book, like some kind of encyclopedia, and until like sort of like it's that thing where sort of until actually you see it again in print, it's like you made it up. When it was on Scorsese's list, it's like, finally, you're the other person who's seen The Asphyx. One other thing, there's one, like I said, I have 5 left to go. And there's one I've left as the final one, and I might have to leave this one until after lockdown is over, hopefully this year, is Underground by Anthony Asquith, the silent movie. And I have it on Blu-ray, and the reason I have not watched it is because my associate producer, Leonora Thompson, Leo, who you both know, her great-grandmother, Nora Baring, is the star of that movie.
Oh.
And also her great grandmother looks exactly like her, and so she's seen it. And I said, I am not going to watch the Underground until you're allowed to come over to the flat and intro the movie and do a Q&A about your great grandmother afterwards.
Have you seen Highway to Jamaica yet?
Yeah, I did. That's a really, what's funny is Highway to Jamaica is one of those films where it's one of the few, I'm sure it was an absolute pig to make, because all pirate movies seem to kind of like crush the directors, maybe until like Pirates of the Caribbean came along. Pirate movies are always seem to be like the toughest films to make. I don't know if you've seen that documentary called The Ghost of Peter Sellers. Oh my God, if you haven't, it's amazing, about Peter Medak and Peter Sellers both separately having a breakdown making The Ghost of the Noonday Sun. That documentary is amazing. So when having just recently watching Highway to Jamaica, I was really into it. But they actually look like one of those pirate movies where it seemed like they sometimes films set on boats, you can tell that the director is obviously having the worst time of his life. But Highway to Jamaica is a really handsome movie. And I was sort of like, so that was the thing, is I felt like, oh, this is one of those pirate movies that doesn't look like it was an utter disaster to make.
No, one of the things that was actually funny about it is like, I was like, I got a print of it and I was watching it and I go, can we show this for the kiddie matinee? Because it's about these kids. And I go, okay, it's actually kind of a rough kiddie matinee movie, but I'm kind of down with a rough kiddie matinee movie. It still kind of fits the tale of these young people, but it gets rough, it gets dark.
Yeah, one of the kids, in fact, the one, spoiler alert, who doesn't make it, is played by the novelist Martin Amis.
Oh, no kidding!
He's the oldest kid. It's a really interesting movie, that and it's not really like any other Alexander McKendrick film either.
And one of the other ones that actually two of the other ones that I discovered that actually to answer your question from earlier is when it came to these older British films, at first it was random. The stuff, not the stuff on the Edgar's list or the stuff on Scorsese's list, but the stuff I found on my own, it was just whatever sounded interesting. If it had an interesting plot line, it had an interesting actor or whatever, I was just kind of letting part of the fun of it was letting going wherever the wind took me. But now but then you start focusing on people. So now I'm focusing on Basil Darden. Now I want to see more John Guillermin. All right, from that same time period of the 60s, black and white movies of his, before he went totally Hollywood. But a couple of ones that I found, that I discovered that I was really a fan of, that I had never really heard of before, is another one that I just found is a film called The Hidden Room. It's also known as Obsession, from 1949. It's directed by Edward Dmytryk. And I watched this one because the storyline sounded good. But also Sally Gray's in it, and I'm a big Sally Gray fan. But it stars Robert Newton. And I realized as I'm watching the movie that I've only seen Robert Newton play a pirate before. I've never seen him play anything but a pirate. But I've seen him play a pirate like 3 or 4 times. But it's that classic story of the cuckold husband who's rich and a genius, but he's made a cuckold by his scheming wife and her young lover, and so he plots the murder of her young lover to get revenge. And again, I don't really care about how it all comes out. I didn't buy the wrap up. Definitely not as much time was put in the wrap up as was put in the setup. However, Robert Newton comes up with a genius plan to torture and destroy the lover, and it's one of the things that's like so fantastic about the British films of these movies from the 40s and the 50s is their dialogue is so good. It's so witty, especially in some of these crime movies. The dialogue is so good. But The Hidden Room, I won't go into his plot. I'll let you have the fun of watching it. Yeah. But it's like a Columbo episode where the killer is the star. The killer is the lead, and you're rooting for him. And there even is a Columbo-like detective who shows up halfway through, and it's like kind of starts fucking around and starts asking questions, and he's gonna like figure it all out later. But you're not on Columbo's side in this. And this side, you're on Donald Pleasant's side. Then the other thing that I discovered that I think is actually probably pretty well known in England, but I had never heard of it. And it sounds like a pretty classic British film. It's like Michael Redgrave and Alexander Knox and Denholm Elliott when he was like 27 in it, and the girl who's not Ava Gardner that's in Pandora and the Flying Dutchman. It's called The Night My Number Came Up. Have you ever heard of that?
You tell me about it. I've never seen it.
Chris, have you ever heard of that?
I'll be honest, I don't think I have, but let me just check. The night my number came up.
Okay, looking it up. Okay, my mother could do that. You know, like, looking it up gets you nothing.
No, I was just checking. I was just double checking to be sure.
Chris didn't want to make another Pink Cadillac mistake.
By the way, vis-a-vis Pink Cadillac, Buddy Van Horn directed that.
Oh, Buddy Van Horn. Okay,
So let's 1-1.
Eastwood directed it. If Buddy Van Horn goes into take 4, Eastwood's directing.
Is Buddy Van Horn the real stuntman Mike?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. No. Buddy Van Horn is the real Cliff.
Right. So we interrupted. The night my number came up.
Yeah, the night my number came up is an interesting fantasy where it's a bunch of high-class people that are in the British Embassy in Hong Kong. I believe they're in Hong Kong. They might be in Shanghai. They're in the British Embassy, and a military guy shows up at a little cocktail soiree, and he starts talking about this. And he doesn't even want to talk about it because it's disturbing, but it's brought out of him that he had this really bizarre dream the night before. And he told his attaché, oh, you got to tell him the dream. You got to tell him the dream. And he describes a dream that he's not in the dream. He's like just kind of watching everything happen. And it's about a flight that takes off. And one of the Michael Redgrave's character is like, well, you were on the flight. But I just met you the night before. So that's why I figured you were in the dream. And he describes this very specific set of situation that happens on this flight. And then the flight crashes and everybody dies. But it's a very specific set of circumstances. It's a specific airplane. There's 8 passengers. There's a VIP on board. One of the 8 passengers is a woman. They get lost during a storm, and they're going to crash in the mountains of Japan. So all this very, very specific stuff that he describes. Now, Michael Redgrave's character has to take a flight the next day. And little by little by little, everything the guy described in his dream starts little by little falling into place on the plane before they take off.
It's the original Final Destination.
Yeah, no, it was very much had a Final Destination kind of vibe to it. It was like a Stairway to Heaven version of Final Destination.
I want to mention a little rabbit hole that I went down. Like, again, like Chris, to answer your question as well, like it's similar to Quentin. It's sometimes directors and sometimes actors and sometimes both. So I'd seen this Edmund T. Greville film that Scorsese recommended called Brief Ecstasy, which is like an hour long. And that was really interesting. And also, I am a fan. I think he directed it as well. I love the film Beat Girl, which is directed by Edmund T. Greville. You can maybe check. I think I'm right. Don't even check it. Maybe check it just to see.
I'm not looking anything else up. But
Yeah. Stop embarrassing yourself.
I'm right, and if if I'm wrong, people can scream at the podcast. Anyway, I love Beat Girl, and in fact, I love the John Barry soundtrack. I'd seen Brief Ecstasy, and then I had a film that I already had it on DVD, and I think your own Kim Newman had recommended it to me, and I'd never got around to watching it, even though it involves murders in Soho, and it's called. But it's called Noose, and because it was an Edmund T. Greville film, and I was thinking, I already have Noose on DVD, and Noose, it stars Carol Landis, and I'd been listening to Karina Longworth's podcast.
You must remember this, which is ironic.
So she did a great series called Dead Blondes, where she talked about actresses who died in their prime, and Carol Landis was one of them. So Noose stars Carol Landis and Nigel Patrick. And Nigel Patrick's. So this movie is about a gangster who's bumping people off in Soho. It's about. It's not a serial killer. It's about a gangster killing people off. Nigel Patrick's performance is amazing, and also for a murder mystery or like thriller, it's actually like really funny, and it sort of is odd because it has this screwball comedy energy. Nigel Patrick is basically playing like a Cockney spiv. And Nigel Patrick, who in other movies that we've been talking about, like League of Gentlemen and Sapphire, is quite a posh actor. But seeing Nigel Patrick talk like this, like at 200 miles an hour, he's amazing. So he's one of those actors that I came away thinking, like, this guy, whenever this guy shows up in a movie, it's going to be good. Nigel Patrick is great.
No, it's been like watching a Nigel Patrick film festival.
He's amazing.
It's been like watching a Nigel Patrick Film Festival, old darling.
I was going to say, we didn't mention that when you were talking about the strong room, I was very impressed by your use of the word biddies, which is a very English expression saying old biddies.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention one other film that was I had never really heard of and really floored me. That's on the Scorsese list is I think the best. There's many films that revolve around Burke and Hare as characters, and there's several films where they're the lead. But this is the best Burke and Hare film. Is 1959's The Flesh and the Fiends with Donald Pleasance, and Hot Fuzz is Billy Whitelaw's last movie. Billy Whitelaw's first movie is The Flesh and the Fiends. So I was watching this movie and I was like, it's really disturbing. Donald Pleasance and Peter Cushing is in it as well. I buried the lead. Peter Cushing is the star. Donald Pleasance is so disturbing in the movie, such a brilliant performance. And then Billy Whitelaw, who must be 25 in it or something. It's so heartbreaking. That movie is great. And having seen many other Burke and Hare films, I was like, oh, this is the best Burke and Hare film. The Flesh and the Fiends is really strong, really sad, and upset about. That was great. I really enjoyed that.
Well, Edgar, what is your from the Scorsese list? What is your 3 or 4 or 5 favorites?
I was really knocked out by. Unless I go, I'll reel off 5 as I go through. I really liked So Long at the Fair. I'd seen Green for Danger. I'm not going to count ones I'd seen before. Green for Danger is great, but I'd seen that before. Guns of Patazi was a real surprise to me. The Queen of Spades was knockout. I was really surprised by that. It was amazing.
That's the one I want to see next, actually.
Pink String and Sealing Wax is really good.
The most English title on the whole list.
I know. And it's quite, also it sounds like a comedy. That's the thing. Pink String and Sealing Wax sounds like a, or like a Gilbert O'Sullivan, Gilbert and Sullivan, not Gilbert O'Sullivan.
That's very different, yeah.
What, is that 5? Let's, the other thing as well, the other thing as well, apart from Nigel Patrick, is the thing of what I call the subgenre as James Mason is a bastard movies. And there's a lot of, if you like your James Mason cold and unfeeling, The Seventh Veil, The Man in Grey, Pandora and the Flying Dutchman, it's James Mason is so great. I was thinking, I'm not sure if I picked 5, but there was some ones that, I tell you another one that we didn't mention that I hadn't seen before, which is a Basil Dearden movie, but is not like the others. It's the movie The Halfway House, which isn't really like any other Basil Dearden movie. And it's some strange mix, and it is an Ealing film, but it's a strange mix of a Whiskey Galore stroke Brigadoon, but has a really profound ending. I guess in a sort of matter of life and death, Stairway to Heaven, that's what it's called in the States.
Yeah.
The Halfway House, it starts in a very light way, and then the ending really floored me. And that was it's a bit Twilight Zone-ish, but it wasn't like any other Basil Dearden movie, and it had a really sort of profound and sad ending. I was kind of knocked out by that as well. So that's 5. But I mean, there wasn't many that even things I'd seen David Lean. I'd actually watched This Happy Breed just before Scorsese sent the email, which I was kind of knocked out by that. But The Sound Barrier I'd never seen, and that's a really quite a dark film, much darker than you'd expect given the subject matter. So that, I mean, I mentioned a bunch of them, but.
My favorite, not just of the Scorsese list, but of the British ones that I've seen during our time. Guns of Patazi, number 1. All Night Long, very, very close, number 2. Sapphire, I think Sapphire and Pandora and the Flying Dutchman are fighting it out for 4th, I guess. Fourth position.
For the coveted Nigel Patrick Technicolor spot.
Yes, exactly. Well, Sapphire wins if it's all about Nigel Patrick. But then when it comes to the 5th position, I mean, it could be So Long at the Fair. It could be The Night My Number Came Up. It could be Strong Room. And Hidden Room could be in there too. But especially those 3, you easily could fit the 5th spot. I'd like to actually just bring up a couple of British movies, not that I've seen before, that are not talked about that much. what I would add to this list of ones for audiences to look up and check out. Talking about the J. Lee Thompson early movies is one of his best, two actually, of his best ones. One is his first official, I think it's what we call his first official thriller. It's in the similar vein to Tiger Bay, called The Yellow Balloon.
Oh yeah, I've never seen that one.
It's fantastic, and it's another a little boy witnesses a murder and gets manipulated by the murderer, and it stars Kenneth More is in it. He plays the little boy's father, and the actor from Robert Aldrich's movie Attack, William Smithers, an American, plays the killer in it. The little boy's really good in it. Yeah, it was J. Lee Thompson's first official successful thriller, because if J. Lee Thompson could have, he said if he could have become Alfred Hitchcock, he would have been happy to do that. If he did nothing but thrillers for the rest of his career, he would have been very, very happy by that. But The Yellow Balloon is terrific. But I actually think J. Lee Thompson did one of the great last movies of all time with Conjette, the Charles Bronson movie Conjette.
Is that the one that's Forbidden Subjects? Is that the subtitle?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never seen that movie.
It's one of the great last movies of all time. I'm a fan of all the Bronson canon, J. Lee Thompson movies that he did during that period. I'm a fan of every single one of them. Not so much the Bronson 70s ones, but the Bronson canon 80s ones. I am a fan of. Not the McElwinter ones. I'm not talking about the craziness of Death Wish 3. I'm talking about the J. Lee Thompson ones. But Conjette is in a different class. It's about as fucked up a movie as it can possibly be. And that's one of the things about J. Lee Thompson is he's a bit of a pervert, and he leans into his perversion of his characters, and he makes you one with with these very dubious characters. And that happens in a big way in Conjette, and on both sides, both the good guy side and the bad guy side. But if Conjette is one of the best last movies, J. Lee Thompson's first movie, Murder Without Crime, starring Dennis Price, is one of the great first movies. And a lot of people don't know this. J. Lee Thompson started out as a playwright. And he got his first film as a director, Murder Without Crime, because it's based on a play he wrote. And it's a little murder mystery with magnificent dialogue. Dennis Price gives, if you watch Dennis Price in this Amicus anthology movie and that Amicus anthology movie and this one and that one, and you wonder, who is this old British guy that who's just this name that you've heard that shows up in a bunch of British casts? When you see Murder Without Crime, you'll realize who Dennis Price is. He's he's priceless, you might say.
He's also amazing. Kind Hearts and Coronets is also
yes, absolutely.
I was going to say, do you call it the Bronson canon?
Yes, I do call it the Bronson canon. The 80s Bronson canon. Well, no, the canon and the 80s are synonymous with each other. A film that I'm the hugest fan of, and this is a film that nobody ever talks about. It's the movie that made me a Sally Gray fan. I like the George Sanders Saint movies, but one of them, one made in Britain, is called The Saint in London. And it's an official British movie because it's a RKO film, but it was a situation where RKO had a bunch of money in Britain and they couldn't take it out. So all they could do is spend it in Britain. So they sent George Sanders to England to do one of his Saint movies. And hands down, the best of the bunch is The Saint in London of that entire series. I'm a huge fan of the George Sanders movies, Action in Arabia. After Action in Arabia, to me, The Saint in London is George Sanders' best lead performance. It's him and Sally Gray together. They are magnificent together. This is a movie that made me a Sally Gray fan. It is so charming, and the dialogue is so funny, and the character is so great. It's absolutely. I'm a fan of. I've read a bunch of the Leslie Charteris Saint stories. It's terrific. Also, been talking about Nigel Patrick. Have you seen the movie Nigel Patrick directed?
No.
He directed a movie called Johnny Nobody, starring himself and Aldo Ray.
No, I have not seen that.
And that's an interesting movie where Nigel Patrick plays a priest. Yvonne Mitchell's in it too. Nigel Patrick plays a priest in a village. And in this village, William Bendix, who I'm never a fan of, plays this horrible bully. I mean, he's like the meanest man in town, and he's mean to everybody. He's cruel to everybody. Everybody fucking hates him. And he's being his horrible self. He's being his horrible self. And then he says in a mocking way, if I'm God, if I'm wrong, may God strike me dead. And then out of an alley, we've never met him before, ever. He's never been in this town. Aldo Ray steps out of the alley with a gun and shoots William Bendix dead. And everybody goes, who are you? Why did you do that? I don't know.
Oh.
What's your name? I don't know. Why did you kill him? I have no idea.
Oh, wow. And he's Johnny Nobody.
He's Johnny Nobody. And then the final one of my British ones that I would recommend is I'm a big Michael Parks fan. And during Michael Parks' era, when he was starring in features, when they were grooming him to be a big leading man, is a British film he did that Daniel Petrie directed called The Idol.
Gillette, Whistle Down the Wind, the Brian Forbes film, which I think is fantastic, and Tiger Bay by J. Lee Thompson.
I'm a big, huge fan of Tiger Bay.
Another great one that was just re-released on Blu-ray, and this film is a riot, Passport to Shame, with Herbert Lom, featuring in a very blink and you'll miss it cameo, playing extras at a wedding, Michael Caine and Anne Reid from Hot Fuzz in their first screen roles, not saying anything. It also has, it also stars Eddie Constantine from Alphaville. The Flesh is Weak and the Bitter Harvest, the former starring John Derek. And then there's a bunch of ones that are on the Flip Side label that BFI re-released that are really good fun. That Kind of Girl, The Pleasure Girls with Francesca Annis and Klaus Kinski. I already mentioned Beat Girl, which I love. There's a really good Val Guest film that's shot in CinemaScope called The Beauty Jungle, which is sadly on a shitty DVD. I hope one of those labels restores that because it's really good. And then I just reeled off the some of the Italian giallo films that are shot in London, because all of those ones are ones that I watched before I made Soho. What Have You Done to Solange? Lizard in a Woman's Skin by Lucia Fiorci. All the Colors of the Dark, starring your favorite. How do you pronounce her name? Edwige
Fenech.
The final thing I want to say, to wrap this back up, I'm going to do a callback. You mentioned Death Wish 3, and I just want to talk about one experience you can only have in a cinema. I once screened Death Wish 3 at the Curzon Soho as a midnight movie, and I did a little intro for it. And in Michael Winner at that point in his career, and I think he'd ripped off this shot from Sidney J. Fury in the Ipcrest File. Michael Winner always shoots like wide shots from behind a lampshade. It's like his establishing shot. It's like a wide angle shot from behind a lamp or a lampshade. In Death Wish, I sort of said to the audience, I said, I want you to do something whilst you're watching this movie. Every time Michael Winner shoots behind a lampshade, I want you to break out in applause. Now, there are a lot of fucking lampshade shots. So then it's like the funniest screening of Death Wish 3 because people are just clapping every time they see a lampshade. And it happens, I kid you not, like 35 times.
I had a screening like that in a festival that Terry Flameau from the Cannes Film Festival does in Lyon, where it's a classic film festival. And I asked to have a screening of the Claude Lelouch movie, The Crook show. Right. I'm a big fan of that film. In the movie, now, my thing might literally run out as we're talking. My battery. So Claude Lelouch shows up for the screening. So he's there. The theater is jam-packed. You can tell that most people haven't seen this film. It's a really good crime thriller with Jean-Louis Trintignant. In the movie, this whole thing is worked out where part of the crime is the woman doing this weird kidnapping con job is pretending to be part of a radio advertisement. And then they say this one phrase through the whole movie, in this saying of "Merci Simca," which was an actual phrase for Simca was some sort of a product in France at the time. I think it's I don't remember if it's a coffee or if it's a sweetener, or if it's a soft drink, or if it's a camera. It's some product. But "Merci Simca" was the slogan, and it's used in a big way in this con crime thing that they do. And it ends up being said a lot in the course of the movie. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, if this movie was more popular, "Merci Simca" would actually be a thing that people would say to each other and be a nice throwback to The Crook. Now, in France, they don't really have they're not famous for their sense of humor when it comes to this kind of audience interaction, when it comes to movies. Almost exactly what we're talking about in this entire podcast. So I'm introducing the movie. I've chosen the movie. Claude Lelouch is in the theater with me. And I say, okay, I want to do something special for this screening of the movie. Every time a character in the movie says "Merci Simca," I want you, the audience, to scream back at the screen, "Merci Simca." Every single time. So you're going to do it. So let's try it now. "Merci Simca, Merci Simca, Merci Simca, Merci Simca." Okay, that's it. That's what we're doing. Lights, roll them. And I'm sitting next to Claude Lelouch. And the movie starts. And halfway through, they start doing the "Merci Simca" thing. And the audience is screaming back, "Merci Simca." Claude Lelouch is having one of the best times he's ever had screening one of his movies. He's never seen a French audience respond this way. And at a certain point, after it happens the 10th time, he starts punching me in the arm. He's laughing so hard and enjoying himself so much. He's hitting me as hard as he can in my shoulder because he just thinks it's the grooviest experience. And the audience is laughing and having the best time. And when his wife was the star of the film, and so when the movie's over, his 25-year-old son, "Oh my God, that was the best screening I ever had of one of my dad's movies. My mom is in the movie. It was amazing. Thank you, Quentin. Thank you."
One thing I always liked is I think Penn and Teller came up with this thing where Penn and Teller used to have a movie club in New York where they would go as a gang, and when they had certain rules, and one of them is if the title of the film is said aloud in dialogue, they would stand up and give it a standing ovation. And it became like a thing. And I always think about it all the time. And weirdly enough, it's that thing of if the best one ever of those is In a Perfect Storm. I think the weatherman, Christopher McDonald, the actor, says, and it's a Dolly intro, he goes, "This could be beat, 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 the perfect storm." And it's funny, in Last Night in Soho, somebody says "Last Night in Soho," and to myself, even when I'm watching it, I go, "Woo!" That's amazing. It. I want to say, after over 3 hours, the thing that we really learned today is who the director of Pink Cadillac is.
And we will never forget. I mean, just look it up. Buddy Van Horn. Precisely. Guys, I could talk to you all day or listen to you talk all day. This has been phenomenal. But time and your batteries are against this, so I'm going to let you go. This has been amazing. I got this list yesterday. I've got a lot of catching up to do, as I'm sure lots of people listening to this at home have as well. And as indeed do our guests, so I'm going to let them go and get on with that. So I want to say Merci Simca, Merci Quentin, and Merci Edgar.
And Merci Martin Scorsese as well.
Yes, Merci Chris, and Merci Empire.